Okay, so here we are at the end of our portion on ratios, and we're at the risk ratios. Now we just have 3 of them here right now. That's my phone telling me I have just a couple of minutes before my next call. So we have a few ratios here that help us capture how risky our business is. So first we have our fixed to variable costs. And what that means is, so fixed costs means that we basically have to pay them all the time. Variable costs, they vary with our sales, right? So if we have really high fixed to variable cost structure, then that can be a dangerous thing if we have a serious decline in sales. Why? Because our variable costs are tied to sales. A lot of times our fixed costs, or we can also call that our overhead, are not. So if we flat out have to pay a lot of money all the time, then it can be dangerous. So how do we do that? Okay, let's look. Here's what I was saying earlier about that. If you look into the ratios down at the bottom, the depreciation is going to really trip you up a little bit, probably, because it's saying take your SG&A and add back your depreciation and minus your sales commissions, right? You can divide that by cost of goods sold minus your depreciation. So in our circumstance, that's not a big deal. Why is it not a big deal? Well, I tell you, it's not a big deal because we are already separating our depreciation. So all we have to do in this situation, or in this this simplified financial statement, is take our cost of goods sold and just divide it by our SG&A, right? And that lets us know or do we want to do this the other way around? Actually, I think we should do this the other way around. Yes. So we take our fixed cost, SG&A, this is our overhead, and we divide it by our cost of goods sold. That is our variable cost, right? And there we go. So we see that we have an obvious thing that we can look up here and just see that we have a lot more variable costs than we do fixed costs. Our fixed costs here are relatively low compared to our fixed costs. So now we can just take that and we can copy it over to the right, and we can look for trends, right? We see that we had it low and it started increasing, right, as a percentage of or the ratio started increasing. So we saw that we had more and more fixed costs compared to variable costs, and that was probably not directionally where we wanted to go. All right, sales to fixed costs. So again, now we're just going to say, well, we have our sales. Let's look at how much of a buffer we have over our fixed costs. And so that, again, if you look down here, you would add back depreciation and subtract sales commissions. But we don't have that level of granularity in how we itemized it, and we've already separated out our depreciation. So we can just just take this as sales divided by our fixed cost, and we have it as such. Now what we could do is add back the depreciation, because it's not a cash, it's not an expense per se. So we can, let's do that. Let's add this back. Add back our depreciation there, and it gives us 4.84, right? So from 6.25, 4.84. The bottom line behind these numbers is to show, give you an indicator, right? It's not that one number is good or bad. It's you have to look at this in perspective of well, one, across time, how does this number evolve, and two, what does that number look like compared to industries? And we'll talk about that in another lecture when we dive into comparing it against other industry, or comparing against companies in your industry. Okay, the last one we have is contribution margin, and there we're just going to take our revenue, so that's our sales, right? Divide or minus our variable cost, so that's our cost of goods sold. Put that in parentheses, and we just divided that by sales. And that gives us 0.29. Okay, so I'll come back after this lecture, and I'm going to spend some time walking through each of these and talking a little bit about what these mean to us, and we'll look at some of the trends that we see and dive into a little bit more of the definitions. In the meantime, I hope this at least helped you get some understanding of the calculations. You might look at these slightly different. You may have found different calculations on the internet, other YouTube videos. Maybe you went on Investopedia or some other textbooks and dived into it and found that they were either more simple or they were more complex in how they address this. That's very possible, right? So one thing to note is that a lot of analysts will look at these metrics very different from each other. They will look at them differently depending on the industry that they're analyzing, the company within the industry they're analyzing. There are lots of very complex adjustments that you can make to this. This is purely a very simplified view of a simplified financial statement, just to give you an idea conceptually of what we would do with this. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention, and I will see you next time. Bye.